What's up, guys? Today we are going to be looking at some more itemization. In this video, I'm going to take us into some replays of my own games as support, and we're going to take a look at how these items go and how useful it is in the game, and maybe we'll learn something about if there's anything we could have done better. But otherwise, I'm just going to walk you through like kind of the thought process and of the items and break down kind of how the game went and why I got the items I did. So in this game, I'll just start with like the summary. So I got a Ring of Regen to start because I thought I was going to be against a Phoenix. I saw a pro once pick up a Ring of Regen specifically against a Phoenix lane as Bane to like try and outtrade the Fire Spirit's harass. So that's why I picked it up, and then the Phoenix didn't end up being my lane, so that was cool. And then I go the Magic Wand, which I think is fine to pick up early. And then I get a Raindrop, which is really value. Get pretty late boots. Maybe I could have got boots earlier, but, you know, we'll see how it plays out, and maybe it doesn't matter, right? This is a fluffy hat that maybe goes into the Force Staff against Prophet, but I end up going Arcanes into Glimmer, so I don't pick up the Force Staff right away. Glimmer, I think, is really nice against Mars, Phoenix. It's really good against Morphling in particular. Morphling is just not a fan of people glimmering and getting away for some reason, and a lot of his damage is magical as well, so it's just really good specifically against, like, core Morphling. And then I do go back for the Force Staff, which I think makes sense, like against the Prophet, but the Glimmer, I think, was probably correct to get first. And the Man Boots, you kind of always just want to get first unless you're having like a really bad game and you need a defensive item really badly. So, loaded into the game here. And we don't really need to watch the laning phase. Not a lot of interesting item stuff happening there. So I don't want to narrate too much about what's happening in the game, but we do need to kind of watch a little bit of it just to get a sense of like how it's playing out, because that is what gives you like the best sense. Like you need to know what heroes you're playing against, obviously, but you also need to see how the game's playing out, right? If you're constantly getting gone on, maybe you need a defensive item. If you're not constantly getting gone on or something, then you have more options. So it's important to like kind of feel out the game that you're in, right? What do you need? What problems are you having in the game that you're in? So we'll watch on ×4 and see how this goes. So going from bottom, I'll narrate a little bit what I'm doing, not because you don't understand, but it'll be easier if I'm talking it out what's happening to then like transition into like talking about item decisions, I think. So tippy top, try and get a kill. Didn't work out. Immediately smoke the Tiny back to a different lane so that we can get back out on the map. Nightmare starts with an easy double kill. Nothing super fancy there. Just styling on major second place team player Faith Beyond here. So here's where I buy the casual fluffy hat. Or it's not casual, right? I have Force Staff 2'd up. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, at minimum, I can pick up this fluffy hat, and it'll be nice, right? 1000 HP, 7 armor, support at 10. It's pretty strong. Pretty strong. So don't be afraid to pick up a casual fluffy hat, especially against these heroes that kind of want to burst you and kill you all at once, like Morphling and Mars. If you have like that little bit of extra HP that helps you survive their combo and then lets you get your spells off, it's really value. Sometimes you might need a Windlace, but against specifically these very bursty heroes like Mars and Morphling, that's when you want to look to get these fluffy hats. Or you can be like, crit on buy one every game. Notice how I live there. And this is what the fluffy hat does. Like, how low do I get here? Fighting them. Mars gets his full combo off on me. Or sorry. Mars got a spear off. I'm dying like hitting. And then second I got that soul rip off, but see I'm at 150 or that brain sap, sorry. This fluffy hat is definitely coming in handy here. If I didn't have it, I'm pretty sure I would have died. Or I'd be super, super close to dying. So, really good against these high burst damage. And Raindrop obviously also plays into that. You should basically buy Raindrop every game when you're playing support. If they have any abilities that are going to trigger the Raindrop and do like a lot of damage. So, almost every game, right? It's not very many games where you can't proc Raindrop. Passive regen is also just really helpful. To me, I just find it super worth. Notice how long I lived to lose her full combo, and I was still alive. My team wasn't really in position to back me up, but it's like the fluffy hat and raindrop in those situations is what allows your team to possibly back you up and like just not die to the initial initiation. Dying again, not really having a ton of impact right now.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
This game does go on though. It goes on. So I think it's the mana boots here. Unless you're really behind, mana boots, like I said in the intro, mana boots is just the item you want to get first. So unless you're having a really hard time, you desperately need a defensive item, just pick the mana boots first on Bane specifically. So I am going for the Glimmer here. I have the Force Staff and the Glimmer queued up, so I'm going for the Glimmer. It's also helpful. It's good against the Morphling, like I said, and like good against your heroes in general, but it just plays into the same concept I talked about of not dying to the burst damage. Bane is like one of those heroes that can really survive the burst damage if he tanks up a bit. You know, versus like a CM, it probably doesn't matter quite what you buy. Like if they have burst damage, you're gonna die. But like a Bane with a fluffy hat and a cloak and a dragon scale and your level 10 talent, like I'm a 19 armor Bane right now with like a bunch of magic res, right? I'm pretty hard to burst down, or they have to like commit a lot of spells to kill me. So even if they do kill me, if it costs like 1 or 2 extra spells, it's like 1 or 2 extra spells they can't spend on my team. So it's important to identify, like, you know, especially like on heroes like this. Like, can you have impact by just like surviving something? And I would play more so like that with the slightly tankier supports, like the Jakiros, the Banes, you know, maybe some of these like strength pause 4s or something. Like trying to play into that style if you're like a Lion or a CM or like a Dazzle, like doesn't really work, right? You have to like kind of have to have decent base stats to begin with, and then you can play into that. Sitting back here to set up. That works out. And you have to ask yourself, like as you're watching this, would other items be helping me survive in these fights, right? Like, if I had granted, I just got this Glimmer, there weren't like necessarily other items I could have had earlier. Like, would other items have possibly been helping me live? Like, maybe instead of this mana boots, I could have picked up like the cloak first to like increase my tankiness even more. So these are like kind of questions you can like consider, and you have to use your best guess, right? I have a lot of experience in Dota and a lot of hours played, so I can make pretty good educated guesses about like what certain items will allow me to do. But if you're not sure, you just have to try it out, right? Dota is like itemizing in Dota is just figuring things out, right? What is going to work for me, and like thinking about your options, and then trying something out, right? And seeing if it works or not. Like that's how I've come to the conclusion over time that Glimmer Cape is good against Morphling. Because if you have a Glimmer Cape and you're against a Morphling, you just tend to not die a lot. Like, I just try it out, you know, if you're somebody who struggles against a Morphling as a support, just buy Glimmer, you know, first item, and he really has a hard time killing you as long as you're getting it off. So the team is pretty ahead now. This Glimmer honestly hasn't been too impactful, I will admit, given that, you know, I haven't been getting caught quite as much. My team's been able to like kind of go in first. And this is a perfect example, actually, of what the items are doing for me, right? So I'm setting up on this Mars, and I'm trying to get my team to show up. And we'll just see like how long I live. And my Glimmer effect actually wore off. But they orchid me, they're hitting me. This is where the 21 now, at this point, armor comes into play. 21 armor on a support Bane. Hello? I get my wand off before the spear combo. And like the orchid bursts, and I'm still not dead yet. He speared interrooted me, and so they had to commit so hard to get that kill. Like, they used everything. They used, I don't know if they used the BKB on Prophet, but they used the BKB and the full combo on Mars. And this Prophet had to Orchid, and he ends up going down as a result of this. And Mars used everything. So that's where these items like really come in handy, and like you can kind of see how the Dragon Scale works. You know, neutral items sort of count too, right? The Dragon Scale played into the tankiness there. The Glimmer Cape, even though I didn't get the active off while I was taking most of that damage, like the extra magic passive resist helped out. Every little bit helped there. This Fluffy Hat, the Magic Wand, it all adds up. So in this game, like, being tanky is more effective, right? If I had like a Force Staff instead of a Glimmer in that exact scenario, I just would have died like way sooner, right? If I had a Force Staff and like instead of this Fluff Dragon Scale, if I had like, just say I had like a Philosopher's Stone or something, right? Or like a Bullwhip, some other casual support item, or even this like Keen Optic. Anything that's not giving me this extra armor, like a Force Staff plus something that's not giving me extra armor, means I like die there, like to the Spear originally, or like even before the Spear Arena needed to come out, like it would have probably died to the Orchid Burst because I would have been so much less tanky. So hopefully you can kind of see how these items are really playing out to like give me the most like survivability, which in this game is pretty valuable against these like heroes that really want to like burst you, and if they like run out of damage, they just have to commit so much, right? And as a support, that's kind of what you want. If you can get them to like commit really hard on you, that helps a lot. And in games where you're winning, that's kind of more the style you want to play into. In games where it's really close, in games where it's really close, sometimes you need to get defensive items too, like everything is kind of on a knife's edge. I'll just say, in games where you're losing, sometimes you have to itemize for a little bit more like utility, and like, you know, if you go straight defensive items, it might not matter, like you need to be able to kill them. And when you're really, really far ahead, especially as a support, like if your team's ahead, the best thing you can do is like not instantly die to their like strongest heroes. Because if they're really behind, they have to start the fight by like trying to get some easy kill, right? And what is really good to do as support is like, don't give them that easy kill, right? Was that an easy kill up here, like on me? No, that was not an easy kill for them. It was a very hard kill. And when the weakest hero on our team is really hard to kill, like 2 cores, it took them like a solid like 7-8 seconds to kill you, that just opens up so many possibilities for your team. So hopefully you learned a little bit from that game in terms of my choices. Like, yeah, you're a support that went like Arcane, Glimmer, Force. Like, it's not that complicated, right? But the order of these items matter. Having the casual Fluffy Hat, that matters. Like going for like a tankier neutral item in this scenario instead of a more like, you know, damage or cast range focused one, I think is like made a difference. And hopefully you can see how all those added up and it kind of made sense in terms of the flow of the game. Alright, so in this next game, I'm going to look at the Ogre replay. We did lose this game, and just, you know, for context, and let's see. We were a little ahead early and then ended up losing, so that will just be the general context. We're going to jump into the replay here. What did I go? Started with a stick, got boots, raindrop wand, and then I ended up going medallion into solar, into glimmer, picked up kind of a later windlace. Oh, it looks like I was just building into drums. So some more aggressive items here. The solar and the drums. Obviously picked up a little a glimmer cape as well. And we'll see how the game plays out. And maybe in in wins, it's kind of hard to like look at your items and be like, oh, I should have built something different, right? Because you won. But in losses, you definitely should strongly consider if you should have built different items. So we'll take a look at that here. Should I have built different items this game? And this game, I think a decent part of my item build was attributed to like what my team did, right? LC, Slardar, and Bloodseeker, right? They all want to run in and right-click the enemy. So I felt like Medallion was decent, right? It played into that concept, and Solar does as well. But maybe there's a defensive item I should have picked up, you know? So just considering their lineup, let's think about like what items like might be good based on their lineups. They've got Mag, Jug, Necro, and Tiny. Who's who? Is Tiny a core? What's going on here? Yeah, it looks like Tiny's the core. Mag's the support. So they've got Burst, they've got high magic damage, they've got Jug, which is a decent mix, and they've got RP. This is actually a pretty good just draft in general. It covers a lot of bases. It's pretty hard to fight into. There's no item that immediately jumps out at me as like, oh, you definitely need this item. Glimmer is decent. It helps survive against Tiny. And the burst from Necro. Force Staff, I don't find particularly useful against these heroes. Because generally, the way they're killing you is not really like... I don't know, maybe Force Staff would be good?
Healing power.
Let's like take a slower look at a fight and see how this plays out. And see if like... Granted, I don't have the gold for any items right now. There's really no item I could have right now that would be note that the Raindrop and Full Wand allowed us to survive that combo there. And I get one spell off, you know. And I do die, but right, it's about surviving the initial combo. We got caught with like 3 heroes in one combo, so like obviously the fight's gonna go poorly, but just in general, like right, if I'm the only one in that combo, then my team can turn or something, and I don't die and I get a stun off, that's like pretty impactful. That like they can't just kill me and then go on to somebody else and like I get a spell off or something.
Top tower.
So I have a lot of gold here, and I'm pretty sure I was like kind of debating for a while what item to get here. I feel like defensive items with my lineup, I just don't feel like are necessarily going to be highly effective. Like the way our lineup works is we're either going to be like jumping and killing somebody very fast with like Slardar and LC duel and like Zeus burst damage, or they're going to have like just too much team fight. That's the thing here is like based on the lineups, right? We have all like single target damage for the most part, except for Zeus. Who's like, you know, has a decent amount of magic damage on like all targets. But other than that, we pretty much are single target physical damage. And they have a lot of team fight. So this is just kind of a hard game, and part of what makes it hard is like it's kind of hard to itemize when you're like out team fought, right? And you're a support, right? So it's not like how do you like play into your team strategy as a support? I think that makes my choice a little reasonable, honestly, of going for the medallion, because basically our lineup only functions in one way if you think about it. There's no like fallback strategy that we can like do, right? If our lineup's going to get kills, it's going to be through like right-clicking them down. So if you're like in a hard game, you have to play into what your lineup does. You can't just like if I just itemize completely defensively like Glimmer Force Staff, like if I have a Glimmer Force Staff, we still have to win fights by right-clicking the enemy down, right? So does my Glimmer Force Staff help us live long enough to then right-click the enemy down? Probably not, right? They have a ton of heal as well. Like this line, our lineup, I think, is just like, I don't want to say it's not hard countered, but like their draft compared to ours, I think is just superior in terms of like how they want to play. Like we're very dependent on getting these early kills because otherwise they're just staying. They have Healing Ward, Necro who heals a lot, and Ench. Their heal is actually ridiculous, and we're all right-click physical damage. We're not all right-click physical damage, but like we're mostly right-click physical damage, right? The Zeus is a support. So in these scenarios, I think you have to play in to the concept of your team. And so, you know, Medallion is not like a meta item right now. What could my options be though to like play into this style, right? Drums could have been good to pick up drums earlier. I actually think drums probably is just better to get earlier. I could have had it a while ago as well. I might have even had it for that last fight. So I think drums first probably could have been better. Like Solar's good for like what I'm talking about, right? It plays into conceptually what we're doing. But like, is there a better meta item I could have gotten? Like, yeah, like drums, right? And Vlad's as well. I definitely need to mention Vlad's in this conversation. Is anybody on my team getting a Vlad's? No. I don't expect them to necessarily, but they're not. So Vlad's and drums probably would have been better than this Solar Crest, just because they're team amp item versus like Solar Crest only affects one hero, and like all 3 of my cores, like I said, are physical right damage clickers. So I think a Drums and a Vlad's to amp up all 3 of them at once, instead of just one at a time. Or like, you can use a Solar Crest on an enemy, right? Like, if you're in a duel or something. For the most part, when I have a Solar Crest, I tend to use it more on my own teammates to buff them up, versus on the enemies. Like, that's just on average how you tend to be using it. So, I do think this is kind of a mistaken itemization here. I think getting the Drums earlier, and then probably going straight into Vlad's would have been more effective. I really do think that. Even getting more points, just to talk about my skill build, even getting more points in Bloodlust earlier, just to play into this concept, right? Is my Ignite going to be what's, like, doing the damage in these fights? Like, not really, right? I could have gone like 1-3-1 or 1-2-1 even in the lane, and then started maxing Bloodlust, right? I could have max Bloodlust here, which would help my team farm, because they only farm with right clicks. So, I think there actually is a lot to be desired in like the way I like itemize the skills here. This game does go in a little bit more. They kind of throw a little bit, I think. Maybe not throw, but like it felt like we had a chance at some point coming up. That's when you give up a lane. So I finished my solar, I know that. Yeah, I get a couple more, so I do eventually get the front. Here, the jug dies. Is the medallion doing work? I don't really know. Now we have the solar. Maybe next fight, we'll see like how much impact it feels like the solar's having. Here, Bloodlust. I solar crested my Sparta. I forgot the Bloodlust. Got it out. Necro's feeding. Oh, that sucks that he died. So we've got our solar. Got a Glimmer queued up next. And I mean, this is really against the Necro, right? But I, like, based on everything I've said, I don't think it's going to be that effective, because that's just not, like, we have to eventually kill them to win fights, and the Glimmer is not. Surviving a little bit longer doesn't really play into how our team wants to play anyways. And this goes back to what I was saying in the previous game, right? If you're ahead, you can just survive to, like, or you can just itemize to, like, survive and not die. But when you're behind, like, you have to somehow kill the enemies, right? Like, when you're ahead, you'll just eventually kill them over time. Your, like, network will come into play the longer fights go out, your higher levels and whatnot. When you're behind, you have to actually kill them. So, like, itemizing defensively when you're behind, a lot of times is not really how you want to go. And you can kind of see that play out here. Fast forward. Let's go down the for this fight. A little bit of a comeback here. Getting my Bloodlust off, getting my Solar Crest off. Here we go. Getting my Solar Crest off defensively. I mean, you can see there, Solar Crest is pretty impactful in getting that kill. Like, I don't think that kill happens if my Legion doesn't have an extra 50 attack speed and 6 armor, right? Like, he probably just dies to the jug instead. So, in that sense, the Solar Crest, I don't think it was a bad pickup. I honestly don't. But I do think that, like, if I had a Vlad's instead of this Solar Crest, right, that's just helping my whole team heal the whole time. With, like, and it's giving the aura of the lifesteal, and it's giving the aura of the bonus damage, which I think is just slightly more impactful than the one item Solar Crest. But you can kind of see the impact that Solar Crest did have, like, in that specific scenario, right? And here, right? Does this guy, like, not die? This guy probably dies if I'm not, like, constantly casting, like, Solar Crest. Ogre is also just a good hero in general to pick up Solar Crest on, as opposed to, like, other heroes, right? Because what I mean is you already have Bloodlust, right? So if you're Bloodlusting your core, you're, like, amplifying them, right? So you can play into your own hero's playstyle of, like, amping. So, like, Solar Crest plus Bloodlust is just a ton of attack speed, right? So if you've got a hero that benefits from attack speed, like, this combination is, like, 60 plus 50 attack speed, right? It's 110 attack speed, which is, like, almost a Moon Shard, right? A Moon Shard's 140? I mean, it's like it's like 4/5 of a Moon Shard with like 2,000 gold of an item, right? On any core you want, like all the time. So it's like almost like having your carry have a full moon shard. Not to mention the movement speed that they give as well. So it kind of plays into how Ogre like plays, and I think that's probably what had me lean more towards going this item. Like if I was playing the same style but on a different hero, maybe I don't go Solar because Solar doesn't quite play in as well to like what Ogre wants. But like I said, just because of the meta, I think Vlad's and or drums, probably drums first just because it's cheaper and easier to get, and then like the Vlad's would have been really helpful just for the whole team and how we wanted to play this out a little bit. See if I freak out. We'll see how this Glimmer plays out. I have a feeling it's not going to be that impactful, right? Especially just, again, compared to like Vlad's or drums. Right now. Okay, we lose our LC for no reason. Cool. Not just Herald, you know, guys. This is this Legion's has a main of 9.6k Kappa and is rank 865 on this account. So, you know, it's not just your Herald teammates dying in the enemy jungle for no reason. Promise. It happens in 7k games. Smoke here. Do I just take a Roshan or something? Yeah, I take a Roshan. Alright. Well, let's see how this goes. Probably losing fight off this. Got all my items coming out. I did get my Solar off. Didn't really get a Bullet off right away. Wait, who did I Glimmer there? Let's slow down regular speed. Get some spells off. I get RP'd. Glimmer myself. But at this point, it's kind of already over. Mag almost dies, but now Jug dies. So you can see, like, what would have made that fight go better, right? Like, we need them to die early. Like, if they're not dying and surviving, like, that extra time, then these fights, they have too much heal. Like, they have a healing ward going, they have the Nature's Attendance going, they have this Necro spamming his heals, right? Like, lineup conceptually wise, like, it doesn't matter that I live here with this Glimmer Cape. Like, it actually doesn't matter. Like, what would have been better is if I had, like, drums to pop at the beginning of that fight and a Vlad's aura that, like, as I was RP'd was, like, having impact on my team and boosting their damage. So, you can see the Glimmer just really not having an impact there. And I don't think in the game I was thinking this clearly about, like, how our team needed to, like, function. Like, obviously I had some sort of sense of it in mind, but I don't think I was playing into it enough. And you can see I'm kind of going back to the drums here, which, like, as I've discussed, I think is a decent item at this point. But we got their Aegis, right? So the game's not over. This game's winnable. There'll be one more fight. Let's see what happens. Obviously we lose it because we lose the game. But... and abilities. My team's, like, spreading out here, which I don't think is good. You just never see pros do that at this phase in the game. Like, if you're behind like this, like, you don't, like, spread out. You just sit under your vision and, like, wait for the opponent to, like, show. Alright, so this is what I mean, right? If we had our whole team here, like, playing under our vision, like, this Tiny would just die and we could stay in this game. So let's just watch this last fight. I'm out of position. I do have my drums at this point, though. Oh, I don't even cast my drums. Oh my god, I'm such a noob. Alright, I don't even cast my drums there. Did the Glimmer help at all? No, not really. Took my cooldown when the fight even started. I didn't even get my Glimmer off. So you can see, technically, if I had a Vlad, you don't even have to push the Vlad button. So, I don't know if that would have changed this fight in particular, but we'll wrap it up here. We lose the game off this fight, obviously, but hopefully that was helpful to see, like, my thought process in watching this back, and it really depends a lot, like, on what the lineups are and how the game is, like, playing out, and it can be really hard to figure this stuff out, but I feel like I learned something watching the second game especially, and hopefully you guys did too. I'm going to wrap the video up there. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you like the content. Give this video a like if you want. Leave me a comment or a question if you want. And I'll see you in the next video, guys.